Not overly concerned about pulling the shipping bolts out right now, just for the tear down. We'll see if we need to pull them out to move something, but I'm more concerned about you guys seeing how to get into it and how to take the components apart. So all of these are 8mm screws as well. And set this off to the side. Now, what we've exposed so far, we got our belt, our pulley, we've got our motor controller right here. Now you will need to undo the shipping bolts, or I'm going to have to undo the shipping bolts to get this out. It looks like I'm not going to have enough clearance, and I'm going to have to push it forward to be able to pull the motor controller out the side right there. So let's go ahead and let's take our shipping bolts out. All right, so the shipping bolts are just some 10mm. There we go. All right, so to get the motor controller out of here, looks like we have 2 more 8mm screws securing it from right here in the back. Try and get it out here to where you guys can see it too. So we got some locking tabs here for our cover. And grab a flathead and pop those off. There we go. That's going to expose our motor controller. So we've got 3 little red wires connected on this side. Pull that off. We got 2 gray wires. Go ahead and pull that off. And we got 3 yellow wires. So there's our motor controller right there. What else do we have down here? We've got our motor and our heater. Let's go after our motor. So I'm going to pull the tension to this belt as I'm rotating it around the wheel, same way you would do an old bike chain. Got 1 zip tie here holding our wires in place. This one on our motor though should have a quick release. Looks like our motor's held in with these 2 screws. Let's see. Are those 8mm as well? Darn sure are. Let's get those out of here. All right, so we should be able to push our motor. Nope, we got 1 more. It's actually hidden around here on the side. All right, so there's 4 of these screws that actually are holding this motor in place. 1 went here, 1 was right here. Those 2 are the easy ones to get to. There's also 1 right here. And then if you go around to the right of the motor, there's 1 right here. Those ones aren't so much fun to get to. Not a lot of space to actually turn a wrench. Now, I've got all 4 of them out, so my motor should come out, but before I get to that, there's a harness down here. I'm going to release my wire tab, or my wire tie. I'm going to disconnect my ground and disconnect the harness off of my motor. And that should, it actually slides off pretty easily once you get to that point. So there's my entire wash motor right there. And those 2 screws that I was talking about, 1 went up here, 1 went right here. All right, so let's go ahead and look at our heater assembly. Now, our heater's made up of our power and our neutral. We've got a ground, and then we also have a thermistor connected here. Let's go ahead and disconnect them. Take our gray wire off, take our blue wire off. Our ground's got a little locking tab. Let's depress that so we can pull our ground off. And then our thermistor wires. And then we've got a nut on there, looks like a 10 mil. See if we can get our heater to come out. There we go. There's our heater assembly. Thermistor's just kind of pushed into it. You can actually, I'm not certain if the parts breakdown shows the thermistor as a separate part or if it actually comes with the heater assembly, but it is removable if you need to swap it over. So let's go ahead and let's get our pulley off. Now that's going to be, I believe, a 17 millimeter. Let me go grab that real quick. All right, so I'm going to take our bolt out of our pulley now. Now you notice all these little indentions, little caverns inside of my outer tub. I'm just going to slide a pair of pliers up inside of there to hold my pulley in place. And we're going to go counterclockwise. There's our bolt. And there's our pulley. All right, so let's go ahead and try to get our water valve off of here. Now I've gone ahead and I've released the wire harness from the back, just released the 2 zip tie clips. Let's go ahead and take the RAS connectors off. Get the harness out of our way. Now there's 3 solenoids on the cold side and 1 on the hot. They're actually on this unit, they're 2 separate. Two separate valves. I'm going to disconnect the clips from up here just because they're easier to get to, especially for filming, or they're going to look better for filming versus trying to get underneath the valve to get them. We're going to pull our hoses off. So those are the 3 that go to my cold. Now, whenever it comes to the cold, there's a locking tab system, kind of like we're going to find on the door lock assembly. What we're going to do is we're going to push in on the back side, we're going to push our clips in and we're going to rotate it and pull it out. So you're pressing on these 2 little points on the back to release it, rotate it, and pull it out. Here, I'll show you on the outside for the hot valve. So we're going to press on these plastic tabs as we are rotating to the side, and then the whole thing's going to rotate and come right out for us. And whenever we go to put them back in, we're just going to come in at an angle, lock them back in. All right, so we've got our water valve off. We're just going to work our way around. I've got the main control board right here and the pressure sensor right here. So to get the main control out, I'm going to start by releasing this holder right here on top. It's just going to involve me rotating it so I can drop it down. Now my wires are loose. I got 2 ground screws, both with the little locking tab there. Keep those locked on there. Now this should be the 6 millimeter screw. Yep. There's 2 of them right here on top. Looks like once I get them both out, my board should slide upwards and out. I'm going to release this is my incoming power supply. It's kind of routed through here, holding me in place. Just trying to free it up as much as possible so this actually goes smoothly as possible. We've got another locking zip tie right here. Use these needle nose to help me get it loose. There we go. pull it all the way up and out of here. Oh, we got another locking zip tie over here. So there's one on the left-hand side and the right-hand side. So that allows me to pull it up to where I can actually disconnect my components. Let's see what we got here. Got a big pink connector. It's like 3 pink wires. Nope, 2 pink wires, 1 red. All on one connector. Slowly work them out of here. There we go. Got a blue and a gray. It's like 2 gray wires by themselves. Come on. There we go. There we go. And we got a little bitty brass connector in here. 2 red wires on it. Incoming power supply. Looks like we're going to have to pull the cover off to get the rest of them. So we got 3 little locking tabs going across it that's holding our sandwich cover together. We're just going to go down and pop each one. Oh, it unfolds. So we're going to have to get these just right. Oh, I got 3 more on the other side. Wasn't that nice of them? So it sandwiches down like an oyster and clamps down on our control board. There's the rest of our connectors on our board. Now the board itself is held in place by 1 little securing tab down here on the end. We're going to lift that off. It's got 1 little securing tab on this end. Set that cover off to the side, and that leaves us access to all of our connectors on the board. All right, let's move on to our pressure sensor. I don't think we need to pull any more of that board apart. Y'all see how to get to it, hopefully, at this point. All right, so our pressure sensor's right here. This is on the right-hand side wall. The pressure sensor's towards the front. The main control board was towards the rear. Now, what you got to do to get the pressure sensor off, you got to get your fingers underneath this rail right here. For some reason, it's got a clip in there, kind of like the locking zip ties, where we've got to compress on both sides, kind of squeeze together, and pull this puppy out. So that's what we're pressing, is this little locking mechanism right here, so that we can get it loose and pull it out. And of course, it's got a little clip going to the hose if we want to remove it. 3 little wires for our voltage, but that's how we're going to remove and replace that. Let's move around to our user interface. All right, so to start the process of dismantling the front, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my dispenser drawer off. Same as all dispenser drawers, has a little push release. We're going to push and release it. Set that off to the side. To take this front panel off, we've got 5 screws. I've got 2 here, and I've got 3 going across the top. All 5 of those should be an 8mm. Like I was telling y'all before, this unit was a training unit. I ended up with 2 1/4-inch screws up here, so let me grab a different tool. So yeah, these are 7mm. I don't know how I ended up with 2 7mm up here in the, well, I do know, because it's a training unit. It's probably been pulled apart and put back together 100 times over. So now what we're going to do is we're going to grab the top. We're going to lip around the top, and we're going to pry up and off. Now it's got one quick disconnect, or one RAS connector. We can go ahead and set this off to the side. So let's go ahead and let's pull our dispenser housing out. Looks like we've got 1, 2, 3 Torx screws. It's got one hose connected coming off the back of it. We might be connected to our recirculation pump hose as well. Get a better look on it up there, but let me get these screws out first. 3 screws there. So it is, there's just a clip it's pushed into here in the front. So I just unclip my recirculation pump hose, and then we got a black rubber hose back here in the back. If you want to grab the, I'll grab a Phillips head if you want to come around here to where you can see. All right, so you got this one Phillips head screw back here on our hose clamp. We're just going to loosen it up enough to where we can actually release our hose clamp. There we go. All right, so I'm going to need to get this bracket off to get this out of here. So I'm going to release this. There's another one of these zip tied clips over here holding onto my bracket. Matter of fact, there's another one right there. And pop that one too. There we go. Now I have nothing connecting my onto my bracket. And these are Torx screws. It's like T20 Torx. 4 of them, 2 on each side. Technically, I probably could get it out just like that, but let's go ahead and take the bracket completely off. There we go. And that should allow our dispenser to come out. Now this is the clip I was talking about that was holding my recirculation pump hose. It was just clipped in on the inside. Set this off to the side and keep going. All right, so as you can see, I've got the unit tilted up. There's 3 screws to pull this front panel off down here in the bottom. They are the 8mm. Now I did notice one of these screws is not the proper size. I can pull that one out by hand. Let me get these 2 that I'm certain do belong down here out real quick. All right, that's 3. Go ahead and set it back down. All right, so next step I'm going to take in getting my front panel pulled off, we're going to remove the outer spring. My bellow. Go ahead and pull my bellow off. Now you can't pull it off completely because of your recirculation hose, and this is one of those washers that basically is crimped closed, which means if you do need to replace the bellow on this unit, you need to get a worm gear or a spring-loaded clamp to replace this one. So I think the last thing I have, nope, you know what? We've got to take our door lock off. Door lock, we're going to push in, there's a point here and a point here. We're going to push in on each one as we're pulling to the left. Push. There we go. And the whole thing slides to the left, and then you can pull it in and pull it out. Before you go yanking this lock out, remember it does still have wires connected to it, and it's got this release bar that actually runs down into our bottom compartment, this little access cover area. So make sure you release it, pull it out before you pull the lock assembly completely out. So now we just have these two screws on top. Should be 8mm. It looks like there was actually a screw here too. Apparently there were two screws securing this to begin with, and there are two screws on this side as well. I can tell screws used to be there because you can see their imprint from where they were tightened, but apparently somewhere they were set aside, not put back in. All right, it should be. Oh, my door's holding on to me. There we go. I was concerned for a half second. And set our door assembly off to the side. All right, so this is where we go and get a little bit tricky. So since I do not have a replacement clamp for this hose, but I want to go ahead and pull this bellow off just to see how tough it's going to be. I'm going to release it down here at the bottom. So off of my recirc pump down here, I do have a spring clamp. See if we can get it to pull up and off of here. Ooh. It's got a little rubber boot right here that goes on it. Make sure that stays where you can use it. Now these got it hidden pretty well inside of there. Let's go ahead and let's take off our these large Torx. Now there's looks like 5 of them. That's the biggest Torx I've ever actually used. Didn't even know there was such thing as a T50 Torx until today. But let's go ahead and let's take out all these so we can pull the ring, the weighted ring off the front. I believe the technical term is the counterbalance. One thing I did not know about this washer was that it you don't really have a front and rear tub assembly as you would with most North American washers. You cannot separate the rear and the front tubs and replace them separately because the two tubs are actually sealed. They're welded. The plastic is actually pressed together and heated. So whenever you go to replace the tub assembly on this unit, it should come with the inner and outer tub as a whole assembly. Just pressing the plastic fingers back together a little bit, trying to eliminate some of the tension that they're creating on this weight. There we go. There's our weight. We'll go set that off to the side. All right, so we're going after our rear spring now. Now what I do is I'll take a flathead screwdriver, I'm going to put it in behind the spring. Now I'm not getting too carried away. This rubber, I can poke through it if I'm not too careful in how I'm doing this, but you're going to get it and pry your spring out and then just pull it to the front. There we go. Now we can pull it the rest of the way out. Set that off to the side and let's get our bellow off of here. Good deal. All right, so to remove this cover right here, it's got a quick release. You're going to lift this up, this piece of plastic locking tab up. It's going to release it. Comes right off. So, here's my drain pump. Obviously, it's my drain pump because it's going to my drain line. Recirc's over here. What I'm looking at, though, is this clamp. This is one of those crimp clamps that was really designed to only be used once. So we're going to have to pry this off. Luckily, I have two clamps. I have a spring-loaded one that I'm pretty confident will probably work pretty good. If it doesn't work, then I have an old-fashioned worm gear. But yes, these clamps are not reusable. To buy the tool to replace one of these clamps, you could reorder the clamp and the tool, but it's going to cost you more than the job's worth unless you want to pass that along to your consumer. So let's go ahead and let's pull this clamp off of here. There we go. Now we can actually pull our boot off. Now we do have our air chamber going to our pressure sensor over here on the right hand side. It's also got one of those clamps. I don't plan on removing that one. But let's go ahead and let's take off our bottom clamp. Looks like I need a Phillips head so that we can take our lower boot completely off. Pull that down and down. No catch cup, no check balls. I'm just removing my hose from off the side of my tub. It's got a bunch of little channels that it flows through, and then I'm going to take it off of my pressure sensor so we can take this whole boot out. Looks kind of like that. All right, so let's go ahead and remove the drain tube. I'm moving it at this point just to get it out of my way. There is a quick release on the pump. Here we go. So now we're going to take off. I'm going to go ahead and remove the drain pump assembly. It's two 8mm. And it's got one little leg that's pushed down inside of the cabinet. Got a little rubber locking gasket to hold it in place. So now let's take our hose to our recirculation pump. I'm taking the clamp off of it. It's got a little spring-loaded clamp here. It's got another one of those washers side of here. This time it stayed on the hose, but that's my assembly. Let's go ahead and let's take our power off. That's my drain pump assembly. Now, this pump actually separates. If you look right here, that's my locking tab on this assembly. If we pry that down, we can actually rotate this assembly and pull it off. So that's my drain pump right there. And that is my, I guess it's a catch cup or a filter. They call them one of the two. It's basically where you're going to find all your baby socks, hair ties, hairpins, all that fun stuff, coins, sewing needles, screws, nails. All right, so let's come over to our recirculation pump. All right, we're going to do the spring-loaded clamp. Let's take our hose off completely. Set that off to the side. We're going to remove our cover off the top. You notice this little spool of blue wire, they had another pump or have another option for a pump, I would assume down here. probably on the European model. I'm disconnecting my power supply coming in. There we go. Cool. All right, so that's my wire harness. Same thing, 8mm. And this is my recirculation pump. Curious to get the two side by side and see if there's any real difference. Let's see if it pops out of there. Yep. Oop. Slides forward and pops off. There's a little bit of a variance in size, and then that's my recirculation pump. It's also got a locking tab on it, but it looks like this locking tab's actually broken, but it rotates and then pops off. That's my recirc pump. Got a different impeller too, so yeah. I can't get those mixed up on these. Well, try not to get those mixed up on these. And don't lose your washer. I just about lost mine just then. All right, we'll set that off to the side. Let's go ahead and let's get after our shocks. I'm only going to do one shock. I don't see the point in showing you how to do all three. It's pretty much the same for all of them. All right, so a little trick that I used whenever I was in the field to remove the shocks, we're going to use a 1/2" socket, and we're just going to pry it up onto our pin. We've got a locking pin at the top and the bottom. Once we get it on the bottom, it's going to hold in my two tabs of my locking pin. Then we're going to go to the other side, and it should allow us to get a lot of force on it where it's at. There we go. We're pressing down on that little locking tab right there. We're pressing down on this little locking tab right here with that 1/2" socket to allow us to be able to pull that back out. Let's go ahead and get the top one. Same thing, only this time it's reversed. So my socket's going on the inside. And I'm going to be prying from this side. There we go. It's one of our shocks. So there's 3 screws right here on top that secure this other piece of concrete. I don't know if they're considering this an anti-vibration or a counterweight. To me, it's just a piece of concrete that's going to make it heavy whenever I go to remove this tub. Get it up and out of here. And I thought I had that all the way out. There we go. Set this off to the side. All right, so the only thing left to do to get this tub out, we've got our 2 suspension springs on either side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it inwards and lift up. The key is to actually pull it towards the opposite side as you pull up, and then bend the spring a little bit. So I lift upwards. There we go. Take that off. Take that off. Let's pull our tub out. So on this one center shock, I did come into a problem with it being whenever it was installed. You can't use a 1/2" socket to help you cheat to get this locking pin out of here because they have this second ridge, so it's not gonna fit. The only way that I know to get it out is to basically press that tab, and whenever it's in an installed state, makes it very, very tricky to do. But I figured I would show you guys while it was laying here on the floor where that locking pin is, so that you can actually locate it and remove it if you ever need to remove the center shock. 2 outside shocks, yeah, I could still use the 1/2 inch center shock. No. There we go.